We're going to go live shortly. Thank you. So, is it Simon or Habs? Thank you. Thank you very much. So, good morning, members, officers, and any members of the public who are viewing the live stream. Welcome to this meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Anna Bragnam, and I'm the chair of this committee. So, members, can I ask you to introduce yourselves, starting with Councillor Fane, my vice chair.
Good morning, Peter Fane, member for Shelford.
Thank you. Councillor Dr. Toomey Hawkins.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Toomey Hawkins, Caldicott Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Dr. Lisa Redrup.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Lisa Redrup. I'm one of the members for the Harston and Comberton Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Sandford.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Peter Sanford, one of the members for Caxton and Papworth Ward.
Thank you. And Councillor Rixon.
Morning, Chair. James Rixon, ward member for Histon, Impington and Orchard Park.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Dr. Richard Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. Richard Williams. I represent the Whittlesford Ward.
Thank you. And Councillor Heather Williams.
Good morning, everybody. Heather Williams. I represent the Warden's Ward.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin Khan's arrived, Chair.
Thank you. I'm aware. Thank you. And when you're ready, Councillor Khan, if you'd like to register and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Councillor Martin Khan. I represent the Histon and Impington Ward.
Thank you very much.
And another Councillor, Ariel Khan, will be here in 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. So those in the chamber are reminded that the meeting is being live streamed. Oh, sorry, hang on. Officers. Right. Let's start at the far end. And one of the case officers, please, would you introduce yourself, Aaron?
Good morning all, Aaron Coe, Principal Planning Officer at Greater Cambridgeshire Planning Service. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lace?
Good morning, Lace Fakada, Planning Officer at the Greater Shed Planning Service.
Thank you very much. And Rebecca Smith?
Morning, I'm Rebecca Smith, I'm the Delivery Manager.
Thank you. And
Morning, Vanessa Blaine, Planning Solicitor.
Thank you.
Sarah. Morning, Sarah Steed, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. And Simon? And, sorry, I'll say for you, Simon Hill and Habs PC, thank you, who are running the broadcast of the committee. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you all here. And Ariel, can I, Councillor Khan, can I just ask you to register and just introduce yourself, please?
Councillor Khan, member for Harston and Comberton Ward.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. So, right, those in the chamber are reminded that the meeting is being live streamed. By your presence here in the chamber and via video conference, you're deemed to have consented to being filmed and to the use of images and sound recordings for a webcast and archived recording. May I ask those who are joining us remotely, I'm not sure we have any today, to ensure that their camera and microphone remain off. If a member arrives after the start of an application or leaves the chamber once an application has commenced, they will not be able to take any further part in that application, either by entering into the debate, questions or clarification of the vote. Sorry, questions of clarification or the vote. So, item 2 is apologies. Are there any apologies, Sarah?
Chair, I note Councillor Wilson isn't present in the chamber yet, but I'm not aware of any apologies.
Okay. Thank you. That's Councillor Eileen Wilson, isn't it? Okay. Right. So, item 3 is declarations of interest. Please would councillors declare if they have any declarations of interest and also identify which application their declaration relates to. So I can't see any. If, as the meeting proceeds, you realise you have an interest, please would you raise it at that point. So item 4 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of April and on the 14th of May. and they have been submitted to this meeting for approval. If there are any matters of accuracy, please could members raise them now? Otherwise, the minutes will be approved as a correct record. So, Councillor Khan, thank you.
Last time I raised the issue of the reporting of my comments as councillors' comments in the April committee, and it was designed to revise them. I made some recommended changes. They've not been included. It's been much simpler. I understand there's a principle that you tend to drive that you don't include councillors' comments now. I think that's a mistake, and I wish to emphasise, record that I think it's a mistake. We are representing our ward, our electors in our ward, and I think it's important that they know what we have said, and when we make cases about applications to come before the committee. And so I will not approve the minutes as they stand. I don't know what other people think, but I wanted to represent that. I think that generally we should be recording comments of other people here because it's for two reasons. One, because of meeting to the our local people we represent, but also for the point of view of archives. As the minutes are at present, you can't understand what the argument is. The argument is that has taken place in the committee, and therefore we won't know the way that applications are considered. And I consider that's important. I'm on the County Archives group, and I'm aware that it's important that we have good archives and they're kept for posterity. So for that reason, I will be voting against them, and I want it recorded that.
Okay, just thank you very much, Councillor Khan. I hear what you say, and at the time I understood what you were asking, but I recognise that that did not concur with our normal format for minute taking in these committees. I myself listened to the recording of the meeting in question, and the Democratic Services Officer drafted a record of the matters that you had raised, and I listened to the recording and I made some amendments to add some wording to clarify that you had raised the concern about the over-provision of car parking, and I felt that was adequate, that you had, and it meets our normal procedure. It itemises the aspects that the local member had raised, and I feel that is adequate and complete, and it makes for concise minutes with a record of the matters that were addressed. So I'm confident that that is a satisfactory way of recording what happened. If you wish to come back, Councillor Martin Carr.
Okay. You commented about the provision. You didn't, but you didn't. It didn't include the issue of the legal consideration of where the boundary of the green belt, which was an important consideration. I imagine that the officer concerned who made comments didn't know that this was a consideration, and therefore I understand why the comments were made. I thought that was an important point to put forward. And I was disappointed that that wasn't included. I thought that was just, in fact, more important almost than the over-provision of car parking. So I wasn't terribly happy. So I'll leave it there. We can see what people say. Well, but I cannot support the minutes as they stand. Okay.
We understand that, Councillor Khan, and thank you for your point. Councillor Heather Williams?
Thank you. On this item, I must admit, I do sympathise with Councillor Khan and what he's saying. I think in planning committee we are still referencing individual councillors when they speak. You can see sort of through the report it says, you know, for example, myself and Councillor Rubb asked things. That's not happening in all committees, and that worries me. And I do think that it's important that we keep that planning, particularly as we do need to be as open and transparent as you can, because we know things can come up years down the line as well. One thing I was just going to say on this item on page 5, in relation to myself, I believe this is when my daughter decided to cut her foot open, so I had to sort of run out the building and get to the hospital. It says that I left, which I did, and then later on it says that I queried. I appreciate it says didn't
take... Just draw our attention to where... I'm looking at page 5,
Page 5.
Starts...
if I may carry on, Chair.
Just to check where you are, so I know where you are when you're making the...
Old bit there, under number 7.
Oh, number 7. Okay.
Right? Carry on, yes? Chair?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Okay. And then you see sort of a few paragraphs later, it says about query things. Now, if you were just reading these, that would look a bit odd. I think perhaps if people have left, we normally have it recorded where in the meeting they've left. Or perhaps before the vote, sort of put it there. It just looked a bit, once I reread it, I got it, but on initial things, it looked a bit odd to say I'd left and then say I'd asked a question. So that's just a formatting issue.
An officer about that?
Lovely. It would be lovely to finish my statement, what I'm saying,
I just
Chair.
want to check.
Yeah,
that
you've
element.
interrupted me 3 times, Chair. Can I just finish
Because
my
I
point?
wanted to just check where we were, check for so that we could read it with you and understand with you what you were asking. Sorry, would you like to carry on and I'll ask Vanessa to respond at the end?
What I was going to say is that I don't feel there is inaccuracies, but I feel for easy digestion, if members of the public, if we could sort of record people as they normally are when they leave the meeting. But while I sympathise with Councillor Khan, I'm not at the point where I don't feel I can sign these off and will agree to the minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you like to make a comment about making the point about when the person left?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams. So I note for the minutes it does say in bold, Councillor H. Williams left the meeting prior to the vote on this matter. I think for ease, what we'll do, and my colleague from Democratic Services agrees, we'll time it, left the meeting at... That's it. I think it's
Otherwise
absolutely fine where it is. I think that's best practice in accordance with what we generally do, is it not? I can do it where Councillor Williams is.
Normally, it's
normally in the text.
In the text,
where the person leaves, it says the person left at that point.
Because it looks odd to have it.
So
that
are
I've
you
left
happy
and then
that
what I've said?
Thank you. Fair enough. We can. So in future, so you're happy to sign off these minutes as they are with that reservation, and in future we can put the comment in the text where the person leaves. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right. So I can't hear any other. I haven't seen any other observations about the accuracy of the minutes. Councillor Dr. Toomey Hawkins.
Nothing to do with accuracy. I wasn't at either meeting, so abstaining.
You'll be abstaining. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so I am happy to sign these off. Thank you.
Don't we need a vote?
Oh, sorry, yes, thank you. So let's take a vote then. Do you want to do this by show of hands, just to show those in favour of the minutes as an accurate record? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those who wish to object, 1, 2. And those who wish to abstain, 1. 2, sorry. Okay, thank you. So have you got those, that adds up to...
Chair, I think it was 6 in favour.
Can we just show those? So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 to 2, I think. Yeah. Okay, so those minutes are carried and I'll sign them. Thank you very much.
Councillors, can I just ask, we've got a nice, I could eat my words here, but a nice simple agenda, but when we've got a busy agenda and there's lots going on and there's more councillors here than you, can you put your hand up so that we don't miss it? Because sometimes I will miss it and the chair will miss it when it's busy. So if you can extend your arm, that would be fab. Thank you.
Great.
Yes,
Okay,
as
so
many arms as you like, just get them in the air.
Let's move on to thank you very much. That's always helpful for anybody to see. So the minutes of the meeting on the 14th of May, has anybody got any matters of accuracy about those? I can't see anything. Right. So can I just see, are we happy to accept those minutes as an accurate record, members?
Agreed.
Agreed? I'll take that by affirmation. No objections? Oh, an abstention. Okay, so can we just check through then? Hands up for those who agree the minutes. 1, 2, 3, Martin Khan. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's, and 1 abstention.
Not high enough, Councillor Fane. High enough.
So, and 1 abstention. Are we 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 of us, hang on. So there's only 1 abstention. So it was 9. Okay, thank you. You did. I was very impressed with your extended hand.
That sounds, I didn't need to put my glasses on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. No singing, please.
Right, good. Okay. So we move on to consider the planning applications, and I'll clarify the process for the consideration of each planning application. The process is that the case officer will give a brief introduction to the report. The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the case officer. Then registered public speakers will be invited to speak for 3 minutes each. The committee may then ask questions of clarification to the case officer, and then the committee will debate the item. Public speakers are not permitted to take part in the debate. At the end of the debate and the conclusion of any questions, providing there is no alternative proposal, the officer recommendation will be read out, and I'll request a proposer and seconder for the recommendation. I'll ask members to vote on the recommendation, and if a recommendation for approval or refusal falls, an alternative proposal must be made, which will require a seconder and must then be voted upon, and voting will be recorded. And I'd ask, in this case, we don't have any members of the public registered to speak, but members, I think the sensible thing to do with that, as it's a slight change to our previous procedure, is to always address your questions to me in the first instance, and I will decide if they're reasonable for the public speaker to respond if I think that's reasonable, or if they're for the case officer. Okay, so item number 5 is 25/00610/HFUL, which is 3 Acorn Lane, Cambourne, Cambridgeshire. And we start on page 15 of the agenda. 13, yes. And it's an application for a single-storey side infill extension with front and rear roof lights and entrance canopies. Front roof lights again. I'll let the case officer explain the application. And our case officer is Leis Fakada. Planning officer will present the report. Thank you. When you're ready.
So, hello, my name is Leis Fakada, and I'm presenting item 25/4000610/HFUL. So the application address is 3 Acorn Lane in Cambourne, CB236GS. The description of the proposal reads as single-story side infill extension with front and rear roof lights and entrance canopies. Front roof lights and rear dormer roof extension. The application has been brought before the planning committee because the applicant is related to a member of staff at the Greater Cambridge Planning Service. So looking at the site location and aerial view, the application site is located within the development framework boundary of Cambourne. The site is not within a conservation area or green belt. No listed buildings have been identified within close proximity. and no other relevant constraints have been identified either. The site here is accessed via Monk Drive, and the site benefits from having a garage and off-the-street parking. Just give me a second.
That's
Trying
all right,
to
don't
put
worry,
the
take your time.
laser pointer on the presentation. Oh, it's here. Okay, it's now on.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, as I was showing, the site is just here and is accessed via Monk Drive. So we have some of the existing site pictures, front of the dwelling, side, and rear. The access to the garage is done by the rear of the dwelling. Existing plans elevations. And floor plans. I've just got this slide here because a similar application has been brought before the planning committee. It was approved in April last year. It had the same description as the present application. However, the present application seeks to make changes to the dormer window design and materials and some internal layout reconfigurations and changes to the number of the previously approved roof lights. So we had all of these roof lights here to the front, and the dormer windows to the rear had a pitch, with two pitch roof styles. And the roof extension added 2 bedrooms to the second floor. No changes to the ground floor or first floor. The new plans illustrate less roof lights to the front and a new flat roof extension to the rear. Materials of that dormer window would change to be dark weatherboard and would match the color of the existing roof tiles. It has been proposed that the roof extension would project beyond the rear of the roof for about 2.7 meters, and it would be around 2.5 meters in height. The proposed infill extension is coming to the side of the property and is aiming to connect the garages to the main dwelling. The infill extension would be finished with buff brickwork as the main dwelling, so no many changes to the materials. Proposed floor plans, again, there are no changes to the garage or ground floor and first floor, and the roof extension would add 2 bedrooms with a new layout comparing to the previously approved scheme, and both of them would be en suite. So besides the garage, the infill extension, most of the proposal would fall within permitted development rights. As I said before, no changes to the use of the garage have been proposed, no changes to the provision of car parking, so that shouldn't be a worry. It is considered that the proposed development should not have any impact upon residential amenity, would not cause any overshadowing or sense of overbearing. The rear dormer window would likely be visible from the shared parking area with number 5, Mock Drive, which is behind the application property. However, because of the layout of both properties, there will be no instances of overlooking or loss of privacy. For those reasons, the officer's recommendation is to approve the application subject to conditions outlined in the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you
Not sure
very
if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Les. I just wanted to clarify one thing. Firstly, a very similar application has been approved in the past at this application and at this site, and this application is only a minor adjustment to that, much of which you've said would be approvable under permitted development rights, and it's only coming to the committee partly because it's the applicant is related to the member of staff, but also because of the infilling of the connection between the house and the garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Right. So, thank you. So this is questions of clarification to the case officer. Councillor Fane.
Yes, we refer to this being a dormer window. Of course, the early approval was for 2 dormer windows, but the definition of dormer in planning varies amongst architects and also from place to place. Some councils say a dormer window should be set a minimum of 1 metre from the edge of either side of the gable roof, and is clearly something that projects from the roof. I don't think it makes any difference in this case. You know, it is perfectly acceptable within planning policy, but I would just make as a general point that we need to be careful when considering dormers, because sometimes it does make a difference. And I wonder whether you feel that this is technically a dormer window, as it is now applied for.
Can I just ask, are you asking that because you think this is bigger than what would normally be considered a dormer window?
No, I'm asking whether it meets the definition of a dormer window.
Right,
Just to clarify, as you said, there's various different opinions on what's a dormer window and what isn't a dormer window. In terms of at South Cambs, we don't actually define what is a dormer window. So in this instance, as Les has outlined, that it meets the PD requirements for a dormer window or a roof extension to a house. And so that's the element that we're referring to. That, as you said, there's different types of dormer windows, different sizes, different formats, but yeah, we're happy that it's a roof extension that fits in the definition of the PD.
And I'm happy, Chair.
great, thank you. Are there any other questions? I can't see any. My question was, I'm pleased to see that there have been no objections from either of the neighbours to the north or the south. I guess partly because the residents of 5 Monk Drive have a similar arrangement in their second floor. They're the people overlooking the shared drive. And the property to the south, as it were, at the front of the building, at 4 Monk Drive, I just wondered whether those dormers would in any way, sorry, not dormers, roof lights, would overlook them, but I suspect it's far enough away that it's not a problem. And I just wondered what your assessment had been about that, Les.
No, the roof lights would be at a height that would not give any raise to overlooking to any neighbouring property.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so Councillor Heather Williams and Councillor James Rookson.
It's just a small thing, just for sort of future notice. If we look at page 15 at the table at the top, it gives a page reference of 4 for the parish council. Appreciate that's page 4 of the report, but for our report, it's page 16. So when I've initially looked at it, so it might be helpful to have both sets of numbers if they're going to be referred to. I think that just might need looking at. Rebecca's looking at me,
If I
holding her
can
breath.
come back on that, that was on my list of things to talk about once we'd got through the agenda. The problem is we don't know what page numbers are going to be printed on the agenda. So we've gone with the page numbers that are on our reports, but then they're not transcribed over to the agenda. So
Thank you, and members, the lights will carry on flashing for a bit.
my
Thank you.
suggestion going forward, given that it does, I thought, and it would cause confusion, is whether we could just go with paragraph reference numbers instead of page numbers.
I think so. I think that would be
You
helpful.
may have noticed we've got a new template and we have a few teething issues with it, as this is the first agenda with it on. So I'm aware of it and we're looking to fix it, make sure by the next agenda. But my suggestion that I've written down was paragraph references instead.
I think that's a really good suggestion for two reasons as well. Today I've got the paper copy, but when you're on the online version, you can have it as the whole report and the agenda pack, or you can go on individual items. And if you remember when we started the online, some of us were using one system, some of the others, and it was a bit of carnage. So I think paragraph numbers are always the preference.
Great.
Thank you.
So we can go forward with paragraph numbers in future. Councillor Rickson.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to clarify my understanding. I'm just bringing up the drawings that you shared. So the a similar application was previously approved that included the enclosure of the covered link between the garage and the main dwelling, and that's really the main reason this requires a planning application. So the difference between the previously approved is the size and scale of the dormer in the new application. Is that and then so my question is, if that dormer could be carried out under permitted development, I guess maybe that's not a question you might be able to answer, but why are we looking at this?
The applicant has chosen to put everything on their proposal rather than the elements that don't require planning permission. Rather than the elements that just need planning permission, they've included the whole proposal.
They've already got planning permission for the bit they need planning permission for?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and we're okay.
Yeah. I think we're looking at a thorough application, aren't we? And giving us everything
Almost
to look
like
at
it's a
the
planner
same time.
who's done the... It's like a planner has done it.
Yes. And I think actually I welcome that because from thinking about planning applications in the past, it's extremely confusing to say, well, we've already got permission for that bit, so this bit's separate. It's just confusing. I can't see any other requests to speak, so let us move into, and we have no public speakers on this, so let's move into debate. Would anybody like to speak? Councillor Heather Williams.
Sort of in line with the question, but I think it's good that it's come to us because it does relate to an officer of the council. So for transparency, I'm very pleased, as the chair said, that it's full detailed. However, as we've said, it's mainly permitted development. It's a very small change. So I'm happy for this to go ahead and in as swift a manner as the chair sees fit.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Dr. Toomey Hawkins? Yes, okay. My observation... Thank you. My observation is that this is a very thorough application. It's mindful of its neighbours and it's reasonable in the context, and it's just seeking something relatively straightforward, and I see no objections. So, Rebecca, would you kindly read us out or go through the summary for us?
Can I make a off comment? This
certainly.
This application is from a planning dynasty.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Officer recommendation is for approval subject to the conditions set out in the report, of which there's 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. and before we go to the vote, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the officer for giving us such an easy job. So we've had a proposal to go with the officer recommendation and a seconder from Councillor Dr. Jimmy Hawkins. So let's vote on that, members. So I think we said we're 9, aren't we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Somebody hasn't voted. Do we know who it is? Can you tell who it is? Oh, Councillor Fain's voted. Okay, good. Right, so that's unanimous, folks. Lovely. Thank you very much. And yes, that's approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Sexton. We're delighted. Thank you. Okay. But it's important, members, that we're seen to scrutinise all applications in a reasonable way. So important to do that. Thank you very much, Leslie.
Can I just clarify something you just said, Chair? I don't think it's important that we're seen to. I think it's important that we do. Just to be clear before someone picks that up.
And we're seen to do that. Thank you. Okay. Right. So moving on to item 6. This is 2500-869 FUL. That's land south of Pond, Cambourne Business Park in Cambourne, here at Cambourne. And we've got Aaron Coe talking to us. Thank you very much. Would you like to do your presentation, Aaron?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This application relates to the land to the north of Lower Cambourne, which lies to the south of Cambourne Business Park Road. The planning application reference number is 25/00869/FUL. The application has been submitted by Hill Residential, and the reason this application is being determined at Planning Committee today is because the application relates to the land owned by the council. The application seeks planning permission for the temporary use of the approved plot number 31, as approved under the previous full planning application reference 23/00123/FUL, for a 5-year period as a sales and marketing suite. The sales office is proposed to be converted back at the end of this period to the 5-bedroom house type as originally approved last year under the previous planning application. For context, this site shows the red line plan of plot number 31 within the wider redevelopment of this land as approved last year. So this slide shows the proposed temporary elevations of the sales and marketing suite. There are no objections to raise in relation to the size or appearance of the building. The glazing proposed to the front elevation is acceptable, and the use of brickwork is supported, subject to the final materials being secured by the recommended planning condition. If I can refer you to planning condition number 3 on this application. And then this slide shows the elevations of the approved plot number 31, which was proposed to be converted for that temporary period. As you can see, comparing the two slides, very minor external alterations for that temporary period. With clear signage for making it clear that it's a marketing suite building, and glazing, which is a standard feature on a building serving that purpose. And this slide shows the temporary floor plans with meeting room space, reception area, storage area, and on the upper floors, additional meeting rooms as well. And then on the second floor, example bedrooms within the marketing suite. And this slide shows the temporary landscape plan for the area. Soft landscaping is proposed to the east and to the south of the marketing suite building. This will help to soften the appearance when looking at the site from the Business Park Road. Estate railings are proposed along the frontage of the marketing suite. This will help to define the boundary. The scheme includes visitor cycle parking for 6 cycles, 6 car parking spaces, one of which will be for disabled car parking, and officers consider the number of spaces to be appropriate for the sales and marketing suite use. In terms of location, plot 31 will be located along the Business Park Road, which will be easily accessible and visible from the public realm, which is obviously important from a sales and marketing perspective. and the location is considered acceptable by officers. To summarise, the proposed temporary use of plot 31 is considered acceptable. The design and scale of the temporary proposals are acceptable and in accordance with policy requirements. There are no technical objections to the scheme, and the development would not cause any harm to the amenity of neighbouring properties. Approval is recommended, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I wanted to ask that given the number of people who visit the site at Waterbeach Phase 1, and given that the plan is for, I think we've been told, 256 homes, so there'll be potentially 256 people considering whether they want to live here. I just wanted to ask whether if there are sufficient parking spaces. I know you said that it was deemed to be sufficient, but I wondered if we could consider asking for some management of the car parking, just in case they ended up having more visitors than they had catered for.
I think, as set out in the officer report, this is a sui generis use, and there aren't any direct parking standards that apply to the use being applied for as a marketing suite. And 6 spaces, I think it's standard practice for sort of appointments to be arranged at times, but I think it would be a reasonable condition to impose, requiring a parking management plan and details of how the developer team will plan to organise appointments and control that parking within just this red line plan for plot 31.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I think that would be helpful, because if there weren't enough, if there wasn't a spare parking space, people might end up parking on the Business Park Road, which I think actually has double yellow lines on it. But anyway, it would be very unsuitable. So I think that would be a good idea if members are minded to agree that. But otherwise, does anybody have any other questions to raise of the case officer? Councillor Sandford?
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for the presentation. I'm trying to remember, is the proposed show home next to the Zeiss building? It's
Yes.
You flick through the layout fairly quickly.
So, yeah, just to clarify, the plot number 31 is located in this location.
It's in the middle.
And the Zeiss building is further to the east.
Right, thank you. So Zeiss should not really have any objections. Obviously, they haven't responded to the application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Heather Williams?
Thank you. A couple of questions. We could leave that location plan. Could you just show us where the marketing suite is in relation to this diagram?
Immediately to the north.
Right opposite. And there's parking and EV charging points there, isn't there? Okay. And it says that the applicant is Hill Residential Limited, but when on the previous application it came actually through as South Cams, the skip investment that's impaired with the council. So we have got the applicant bit right, because I have to say when it said skip, it felt a bit more transparent. It clearly showed, I know we've got some reference and it's here because we council owns land, but I think council has significant control over this application as well, and that's not quite reflected in that. So just wanted to clarify, because when I looked at the previous application, it was for the outline, it was under a different applicant name. So those 2 things. Then on the parking, the proposed 6 spaces, is that on land that's currently grass, isn't it, around there? So the proposal is to essentially tarmac over existing grass, which if the house was just being built as a house, that wouldn't be happening, or is that part of a driveway that potentially, or what's the extra tarmacked area to what is currently permission?
Thanks, Councillor Williams. In response to the first question, this application has been submitted by Hill. So you're correct, it's not submitted by the South Cams Investment Partnership. I would be making assumptions to sort of guess why it's been submitted by Hill, but possibly because it's for marketing the private units rather than the affordable homes. That's just an officer assumption.
I could just clarify, but skip the investments in the market homes are as much to do with the council as the affordable. It's not like when we're doing council building, we're trying to make money out of this plot as a council. So the whole site is, but I understand why you would think of that conclusion.
And as regards the hard standing?
The landscape plan showed here is obviously for the temporary period, so we'll be removing existing grassland. But as part of the full application that's already been approved, that was also, this is a conversion of that building. I can find the landscape plan for the approval if you bear with me a few seconds.
Please, I think that'd be really helpful so we can identify what the change is, because it's not what's there at the moment. It'll be what it will long term be when we're looking at sort of retrofit plans.
But this application is for the temporary use, isn't it? So.
So I found a plan, I'll just share the screen again. So this is the plot number, and the area shown in green is the garden of that property. Plot number 31 as approved, and it will be an access road to the rear. So if we just flick between the two slides, you can see the additional area of hard landscaping will be what will be the garden of that property. So that's the area of car parking and the garden of that property.
Okay, so there's a recognition that that's going to return to garden at the end of the day, and this application that we're looking at is only for the temporary use for 5 years as the marketing suite, and after that time it will revert to being the house as described. Great, okay, any other questions? Councillor Dr. Timmy Hawkins?
Thank you.
So this is questions of clarification to the case officer.
Yes. How do we ensure that it reverts back to garden? It's not automatic, is it?
Can you guide us?
I've got the planning condition on this consent, which I can share on the screen. Condition number 1,
Temporary permission.
which ensures the use ceases in 5 years and all temporary structures are removed and remediated and carried out in accordance with that full planning permission granted last year. So that ensures all plans are complied with.
Sorry, let me come back. I know the condition is there, but conditions, developers don't always
well, if they didn't,
keep conditions.
Presumably, if they didn't comply with the condition, then they would be in breach of condition, and that would come to our compliance team. I'm sure our officers will make sure that's done properly. Anybody else wishing to ask a question? Sorry, Councillor Fay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to clarify whether the policy CC/5 in our current local plan applies on sustainable show homes. It says, on developments where a show home is being provided, a sustainable show home must be provided either separately or instead of the show home, demonstrating environmentally sustainable alternatives beyond those provided to achieve the standards agreed for the development. Does that apply in this case or not?
Erin, can you answer that?
So policy CC5 does apply. It's within the adopted local plan, and it requires sustainable show homes to offer environmentally sustainable options for future purchasers. The full application that was determined last year went above and beyond building reg requirements of Part L. They will all be gas-free properties. They will all be achieving water efficiency standards of 99 litres per person per day. And that was considered acceptable under that permission, and the developers committed to meeting that requirement. That was secured by condition 23. So all of the properties will have to meet those standards. So it's considered to comply with that policy. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I can't see any other questions. So, Councillor Khan?
Just very briefly to ask, the actual number of properties being sold will be, if the affordable homes aren't included, will be about 150. Am I correct in that? And is it generally the demand is proportional to the number of properties being sold, or is it
Sorry, Councillor
do we have any
Khan.
information on that?
Sorry, Councillor Khan, I don't think that's relevant to this application. The show home's been provided for the sale of the properties, and I don't think that's relevant. Yes, it's the marketing suite for the properties.
I was trying to just work out what the demand will actually be, whether there's any experience in how demand relates to the number of properties being sold. I suspect that probably just having a large site is sufficient to determine how many people are going to come along. But I just wonder whether we have any information on that.
I think you've answered your own question, Councillor Khan.
I'd like to have, I want to know the officer. He may have some.
Oh, Erin, did you want to respond, or Rebecca, did you want to respond on that?
Yeah, I don't know the level of demand that will be sort of per number of properties proposed, but we've got 102 affordable dwellings on this site, so be 100 and, sorry, my maths is a bit slow there, 148 private units. I think it's an adequate size for and it's a reasonable proposal that's considered acceptable. Thank you.
Right, okay. So I'm going to recommend that we approve the recommendation of the officers, but would you like to summarise, Rebecca?
Can I just clarify?
Oh, sorry, oh gosh, yes. Okay. We haven't had a debate.
I was just going to clarify, during your debate, if you could clarify about the additional condition as well, please.
Yes, okay, right. Sorry, what additional condition? Oh, the one I had suggested about parking. Yes, absolutely. Sorry. Debate. Let's do that first. Thank you. Councillor Heather Williams.
Okay, so we've established the amount of properties. I think the difficulty is we're in a difficult position because we've got to look at it from its planning terms, and then you can't. It's very hard to, as a councillor, not say this is ridiculous way we're conducting ourselves through our business plan, because we have a marketing suite just opposite that has EV charging. We have countless of EV charging spaces that aren't really used here at the council. We've got rooms that we're trying to let out. So a more cost-effective for the proposal alternative, which is being partly funded by taxpayer, could be found. As well, there's all this parking around the site. This is why I'm wondering as well about, and I asked a question about the applicant, because we've got the red line, sort of blue line at the end of the day. Where is it that the ownership, because obviously the council owns the entire business park, so they wanted to, they could give the marketing suite for this. I'm really uncomfortable with the idea that just for this, we're going to tear up grass and wildlife and everything that goes down to tarmac, even if it is temporarily for 5 years, to then put it back down again. There will naturally be a driveway, we know that from the full permission, so that could provide your disabled access, and parking could be provided elsewhere. Also, back to Councillor Fain's point on that policy about sustainability, I don't see anywhere if people want to get there by bicycle. So we haven't got that sort of storage there. So it feels like this is an application that is based on the fact that people will drive to the site, and literally right outside the marketing suite. I think there is debate, sort of, which I think Councillor Khan was leaning to, about whether it's needed for this size of development, or there is a show home. Completely understand that. That is a sensible thing. Marketing suites, not really. But I think that the parking, a better arrangement could be made where you use the pre-approved driveway for disabled access and then use things from elsewhere. We know that EV charging points are going to be put into the properties, so having those spaces with EV charging points, sensible, that's going to happen anyway. The conversion from the sort of glass front and the signage, I think is a waste of money, but there's nothing planning that I think we could say no to it on. But the loss of that sort of grassland to be sort of tarmacked on and then ripped up and redone, I think it doesn't meet the sustainability as I see it, that it should be demonstrated, and there's no cycling provision. Whether that's enough to say no on planning grounds, I'll wait to hear others in the debate, but I hope that common sense meets our investment partnership and they don't waste money in this way.
Thank you. Can I just draw your attention to paragraph 12, which refers to parking for 6 cycles at the front of the property.
Sorry, the EV cycles. Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Oh, EV cycles, okay, no, right.
I thought that's a policy that we were going to try. There was something that come through. More people are using electric bikes.
Okay.
Perhaps I missed that.
I'm not sure on that.
I only saw EV for car.
Yeah.
In part of the planning permissions, we were going to try.
So you're talking
sure.
about EV charging for bicycles?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is provision for cycle parking. So there is an assumption and an understanding that people will come by bike. But Aaron, can you respond to that at all, please?
The proposals don't include any provision of EV cycle parking charges. I know it's something we have been pushing for on full applications for major developments.
Okay.
So it's possibly an informative to suggest it to the developer team is probably worth including.
So
it's not a requirement by policy at the moment.
Okay. So we can think about that as maybe an informative then. The other thing I just wanted to point out was that it's not really relevant to this application particularly, but I did ask about what provision there is for this new growing development in terms of community space. And I was advised that the marketing suite would be converting into a cafe to provide a community space. So I think perhaps that's possibly why the marketing suite wouldn't be used for this development. But Erin, did you want to respond to that?
So the conversion of the cafe isn't relevant to this planning application in front of members today. That's been secured separately under the previous full application.
To a cafe.
Yeah.
And my observation was that as this community in this new area develops, they will need somewhere to meet, and so I was relieved to hear that the marketing suite was being converted to a cafe, and I think that's why it's not being used as a marketing suite for these houses. So,
Jay, if I could, so the cafe we did on the full application, but that's not going to sort of spring up straight away. At the end of the day, the marketing suite, the purpose of it, why it's only for 5 years, is in order for them to sell the houses. Some will be off plot, won't even be built. And to go from there. So I think that could come the cafe could come once actually people are in there, at which point the marketing suite probably wouldn't be needed. I think this is, we're looking at, I know obviously it's very frustrating because I've said on planning grounds, I've given my view on the application, and that is my view, and I don't apologise for that, but I do recognise we're determining the planning application, of which I don't think it's appropriate to be losing that green space for however long it is, but I have made my judgment on those two separate issues.
Okay.
Again, the marketing suite, what's done with that and how it's used, I have my view on how better money would be spent.
Okay, thank you. So I'd just like to rehearse the point about the car park management plan. That if this is approved, I'd like to see a condition that requires them to sort of make some kind of booking system so that they know who's coming when and that they've got enough car parking for them. And I don't know whether that would that be required as a condition or as an informative? Rebecca or Aaron?
The car park management we've put on as an extra condition.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Khan?
Out of interest, because of raising the issue about the car parking and tarmacking over, I was estimating it's probably about 30 square metres of hard standing. What will be the position for permitted development? How much hard standing could one put down as permitted development? I just wondered what it is. I know that in case of a school, for instance, is 50 square metres, but I don't know what this is in this situation.
Is it not more than half of the footprint of the property?
Just to confirm, it's 5 square metres.
So it would require planning permission. I just wanted to check that.
Okay, other speakers. Councillor Sandford?
Thank you, Chair. In my experience, it's fairly standard practice on large developments for developers to use one of the houses as a sales office, and they're very good at, when all the commercial units have been sold, converting that to a livable dwelling. I've seen that in a couple of places, so I have no concerns about the ability of the developers to actually return this to the state we originally approved a few months ago. I think it may be a little bit misleading to talk about green space being tarmacked over. If you look across the road, that area is just weed-covered scrub at the moment, so it'd be temporary tarmac on top of weed-covered scrub, which will eventually be converted to a formal garden. So I think I'm comfortable with what's proposed here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sandford. Councillor Dr. Richard Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I think Councillor Heather Williams raises a lot of interesting points. I am mindful, though, of what's in paragraph 15.2 of the officer's report, where they say there's no sustainable planning objections to raise to the temporary development. And I think, whilst we might have concerns about various points, I'll be honest. I know it's not for us to talk about today, but I really don't like the design of these houses. I think they completely are at odds with Greater Camborne, but that ship has sailed. It's not an issue for us on this application, so I think I would struggle to find a sustainable planning reason to reject this today. I would just say I think that it's maybe a good idea to have a car parking management plan if we want to beef that up. There was a suggestion about making appointments, though, and I can't help thinking back to 20 years ago when I bought a house in Camborne, and I was just a drop-in customer. I was just driving past and thought, oh, that looks like a nice place to go and live, and I sort of, went then, and frankly, if I couldn't park in the car parking spaces, I'd probably park on the road. So I don't think it's probably practical, and it might be an unreasonable interference in the business to say people had to book car parking spaces in their sales office. I think that might be going a bit too far and be unreasonable.
I think we've just asked for a management plan, and it's for them to work out how to do that conveniently. Councillor Fane.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important we bear in mind that this is a minor application, specifically temporary use of a house. I very much support what Councillor Sandford said on that point. I don't think we should get too concerned about the only change here, which is the temporary use of what would otherwise in future be garden space for car parking. I also agree with Dr. Richard Williams that it would be unreasonable to insist on a system of appointments. We have to bear in mind that Hill are the experts on how to market the properties that we have already given them consent for, and we should not seek to interfere too much in their business beyond planning matters. The planning matter is just the temporary use of this house, which will be built anyway for a different purpose for a few years. I've no doubt that Hill will be reviewing this, the video of this, maybe listening in, who knows, and we'll be happy to consider suggestions, but I think it's very important that we as a planning committee confine ourselves to the planning matters before us in this minor application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor James Rickson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Where to start? I think just the point that Councillor Heather Williams has made about the green space, I disagree with that in as much as it is the site as it stands at the moment, and during construction this will highly likely be a scraped site, so there won't be any biodiversity there at that point. So it'll be a temporary use a muddy field, but a construction site as parking. I do also agree with the point that I think it is a shame that, I guess from a sustainability point of view, installing a series of large glazing and then only to remove it again, I guess the embodied carbon associated with that is disappointing to see, but I don't feel like it's a planning matter or something we can challenge in this application. And as such, it does seem like a minor application. I'd be minded to approve it.
Well, thank you very much. And Councillor Heather Williams?
Thank you. So I do think scrubland does have benefit, actually, but I respect when people disagree with me. That's the point of planning committee, isn't it? It's balance. I do not think it's appropriate to say one member is misleading. That's my view, that's my opinion, and that's what I'm here to express. So I do think it's regrettable that language was used. There are alternatives to tarmacking, and you can still have parking. And I think that goes back to my point. You can have put matting down, so you can still have all year round car parking facility without putting tarmac down. And that's where I'm sort of going with this bit of like, does this need to be like this? Is there not a better way of just having the driveway as it is to provide car parking and then an alternative? I completely agree that if it becomes a booking system, I think that would not be deemed reasonable. But I do think it's reasonable to ask for different materials to be used, such as matting for car parking rather than tarmacking. Because it might not be the prettiest, it might not have the richest of environmental impact, but it does feel like an unnecessary loss, even if it is temporary. That's my viewpoint. I don't believe I'm misleading anybody by expressing my opinion.
No, I don't think you are. I think it's fair to point out that Councillor Rickson there is an element, is right in some aspects, which is that it won't, the site is likely to be a building site at the time, and any surface layer will have probably been taken off anyway for the purposes of building the properties. The other thing is that the principle of using a house in this, what will be a future dwelling in this way, is not unreasonable. It's happening at Waterbeach with both the Stone Bond and both the Carla developments. Both have houses that are being used as marketing suites with elements of show house bit in them. Councillor Khan, do you want to come?
Simply to say that I don't really see any planning reason to refuse this. It seems to be acceptable. I can understand why they want large glazed area, because they want anybody approaching to see immediately where the sales or marketing suite is, and so I can, even if it's not terribly ugly, I can see what the message is and the reason. I think the small area of temporary tarmac is unobjectionable. I can also see that somebody who's trying to sell a property would like it to be very tidy, whereas a site, and they may feel that matting doesn't look attractive enough. So I can see there's a good reason why they might want to go for a more formalised, a temporary but more formalised tarmac reason. So in general, I don't think there's any likely to be any problems with enforcement, considering all the planning officers will pass it on their way to the office when they come into the office. So there will be probably have more monitoring than almost any other site in the district. Of course, that does depend upon future planning, local planning reorganisation, but generally I can't see any reason against it, and I should be supporting it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Rebecca, did you want to come back?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that I think there is an assumption it's going to be tarmacked.
Exactly.
We don't have details of what the material is going to be at the minute. The landscape plan that was on the screen doesn't show it as tarmac, and we have got a condition 3, which is shan't commence until details of the proposed materials have been submitted. So we would be able to secure and control what the materials are.
So it could be, for instance, grasscrete.
Could be grasscrete, could be permeable paving. As yet, we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Sandford.
Thank you, Chair. Rebecca Smith actually has clarified the point I was going to ask for clarification on.
Good.
So nice job, thank you.
Okay. Right. So, Councillor Dr. Timmy Hawkins.
I'm about to do something that...
Are you about to propose that we move, which is, yes, that's fine. I think we've had enough debate and we've discussed
From what I've heard, I don't see that there's any planning material reason to refuse this application, so I would like to move that we go to a vote.
I would agree. If that's a proposal, I'm seconding that, and I'd like us to go to the vote. But first of all, we will hear from Rebecca. Thank you.
Just to clarify, recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions, of which there are 4 set out in the report, with the addition of a condition relating to car park management. Thank you, Chair.
Very much.
Sorry, Chair, I don't think that the condition on car park management is currently included in the proposal, is it? That would be an addition.
We'd asked for that.
That would be an addition. I don't think we've had a vote on that, have we?
No, not yet. That's why I said plus the subject to the addition of one.
Yes. So can I just check with people if you'd like to put up your hand to indicate whether you're happy with the car park condition? Just a car park management.
Sorry, Chair, could I just clarify, are there any details beyond it, or is it just car park management?
If you remember, I was just concerned that there shouldn't be parking on the roads surrounding this property. So I've asked that they should undertake a car park management plan to ensure that they manage it in such a way that there won't be.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify whether the booking appointment was in or without, so I'm assuming it's
No, we
out.
weren't saying how they should do it, we're just saying
Thank you, very useful.
that they could manage that. Yeah, did you want to come back?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you say there's double yellow lines all around?
I don't know, I'm not
'Cause
sure.
I don't think there is.
There are, but the problem would be that if cars parked on the business road, I think it would create quite a problem on that road, although it's wide. But there are, if you remember, some of the current uses, there are quite large vehicles going up and down.
Yeah, I'm just trying to come back to the sort of reasonable point. At the end of the day, if people can park there anyway, as it is, then they can have a parking management plan for their site, for their 6. And let's face it, yes, there's 100 houses, but they're unlikely to all turn up at once. And it's probably going to be more likely to come at a weekend when there then isn't the sort of traffic and there is other parking around. So are we comfortable that it will meet the reasonable test? As it's for a parking management
So
term for 6.
Would you like to indicate whether you... Martin? Councillor?
If you wanted to ask whether in fact one could impose yellow lines, I think it's a private road.
No, we're not talking about yellow lines, we're talking
but
about
this was raised, so I just wanted to point out that I'm not sure that it could.
Management for the site. I'm just asking that they have some consideration of the capacity of their own parking facilities and how they're going to handle that. But if members don't think that's reasonable, then we can leave it out. But I did think it might be a good idea. Councillor Khan.
Perhaps an informative might be more appropriate.
Indeed, yes, that's what I'm just wondering about.
Chair, I think I'd be more comfortable because if we displayed the 6 reasonable tests, I'm not quite sure that the park, as unhappy as I am with it going ahead, I did sort of say, look, there's the planning element, of which I agree with members, there isn't much. But if I could just finish for one thing, Chair, that'd be lovely today, thank you. We have the principle of doing it, which is a matter for us as district councillors elsewhere. The planning, yes, there is very little. I'm happier that because when we were talking about lots of space earlier and we sort of looked at the 30 square metres, etc., if I could have a nod from officers that they have heard that if there are ways of having more permeable or environmentally friendly things in tarmac, that would be lovely. But I think officers have heard us on that. But on the parking management, I don't think we'd meet the reasonable tests, and there's that could be removed anyway, so there's no point putting ourselves through that trauma.
So would members be happy with an informative about car parking management? Yes? Okay, right, let's go with that then. So, Rebecca, would you like to summarise?
Just to clarify, in terms of parking management in an informative, what would you like to inform them?
To make endeavours to ensure that they manage the parking within the parking on the site, wherever possible.
Acknowledging the fact it's a private road.
I mean, on their own parking spaces.
Okay.
Yeah. In order to ensure that their customers don't end up parking on the private road. Unless we think,
I can't really do that.
No? Okay, right.
Stop them parking there. Yeah, that's why I'm not sure what we put in an informative.
I think, sorry Chair, can I come in?
Yes.
I'm not sure an informative is going
To work?
to work. They don't, it's a private road. People can park, we literally line the road. There's nothing can be done.
You're talking about the business park road is a private road. Okay, righto. Well, we'll have to leave it and let mayhem commence. Right. Okay. So, Rebecca, would you like to summarise without a condition or an informative about car parking?
Okay. To clarify, the recommendation from officers is for approval, subject to the 4 conditions in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So let's take a vote on that, members. Sorry, I should have said you all know how to use the school voting system. I'm not sure you have. We've only got 9. Oh, we've got 9 and 1. Is that against or abstention? Okay, so 9 and 1 abstention. So that's carried. Thank you, members. Right. Okay, so that's been carried through. Thank you very much, Aaron. That's really helpful. Thank you. So we come to item 7, which is yes.
Was that vote for the informative or condition, or was it for the
Sorry,
application
I
itself?
assumed that was
That was
for the application. We agreed we would not do the informative.
That wasn't clear.
Would you like to take that vote again?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. What did you think we were voting about the informative?
That's
okay.
what I thought I
You did
heard.
make it very, if I may say, you did make it very clear that the informative and the condition was dropped, and we were just voting. And I think the development manager made that very clear as well before we took the vote.
I think if there's any unclarity, well, I'm very happy we take the vote again. I appreciate we went through that quite quickly. So if I may request that we take the vote on the recommendation again. So this is for the recommendation as on page 21 in our agenda pack, and again at page 28, item 16. So that's approved, subject to the planning conditions as set out below, with no further either condition or informative about parking management. So can we take that vote again, please? Okay, that's 10 in favour. Thank you very much. So apologies for not being clear. Thank you very much indeed. So that's carried. Thank you, members. Right, so and I apologise if I didn't make that clear, Councillor Dr. Chingham. Right, so moving on to item 7. Are there any questions for Rebecca on the matters in these appendices? Can't see any. So with that, I'll thank the officers for producing the report, and I think we appreciate the work that's done by compliance, and also we appreciate also that many of the timings of these are determined by the Secretary of State and the Appeal Inspectorate. So thank you very much indeed to officers for producing that report, and to Rebecca. So with that, members, Yep, Rebecca, did you want to say?
Not on item 7, but just a reminder that I sent you all an email on Friday last week about the Planning Committee reform consultation paper that's out at the minute. I sent a summary attachment along with a Word document that you can edit to put any comments in. Ideally aiming to bring a report through July's committee with the council's draft response on. So if you could let me have any comments that you want incorporating into that by Monday 16th, please. That would be
Monday
helpful.
the 16th, and you sent it out on Friday.
Friday.
That would have been the 5th.
Yeah, one just gone.
Yeah.
At around, bear with, I can tell you what time. Can't tell you what time. Sorry? 11:56, lunchtime.
11:56. Okay, so members, if we could all make a point of responding to that, that would
Thank
be
you.
helpful. Can we just have the reminder of the date of the next meeting, please? 9th. Oh, sorry, yes, it's on there. Well spotted. Yeah. 9th of July. Can I just ask if we're likely to have any site visits for that meeting? We don't know. Do we know yet?
Until I know what's on the agenda, no. Sorry.
Okay, righto. Councillor Heather Williams?
Thank you. So 2 things. On the planning committee reforms, I think the consultation does need to come from us as a committee, but has it been sent to all members? Because I think it does affect everybody's local areas. While we sit on planning committee, there are people who's, I'm just going to try and pick a ward or something. No one here sits for Camborne, for example, but planning does affect Camborne and how that process has gone through. So while I think it would be up for us to debate, I would welcome if we could contact members across the council to see if they, the more support we can have for our views, probably a benefit. It doesn't have to be a long delay, but I do think it's important that we make sure everybody has a voice in this. It is going to be quite a change with what's being looked at. The other thing was just a question, because I was at Parish Council meeting, a planning meeting in Hatley, and planning doesn't happen in Hatley very often, but we've got an application at the moment. And they said the planning portal was down, the website was down, and so they weren't able to get the plans, and obviously we don't send them out anymore. So I was just wondering if we could have an update, sort of where that's at. That'd be great.
I'm on it at the minute.
Morning.
It's not down.
No, it was off over the weekend because I was looking at these planning applications, and at one point one element of it wasn't there. I was looking through a map, and it wasn't showing the through map version.
I've not been made aware it was down over the weekend, but I can check if it was.
Well, I'll recap. Could we find out why it wasn't rather than how long it's for then, and have a little look into that, because it was definitely raised very strongly with me last night.
Did they say the day? Because I think it was Saturday, but was it
there
Friday?
is an element of yeah, I've used it this morning. I used it last night as well. But it wasn't, it was the parish councillors themselves and members of the public.
But did they say what day they thought it was?
No,
on?
but I think it's unlikely that they all logged on the same day, like in the same moment at the same time.
I experienced it too. But I don't. So yes, if we could have an explanation of why it was down around Friday the 5th.
It was
Saturday
definitely
the
up on
6th.
Friday because I use it.
Okay.
So
Perhaps
and it
was
was up
Saturday
at,
the 6th.
while I was using it on Friday.
Around that time.
But I can ask IT.
Yeah, if we can, because then I thought perhaps it was a planned works, and I was going to ask, can we all be told if it's planned works? But it sounds like it wasn't. So.
I think it was. Yeah.
If I can just ask about the planning committee review paper to all members, happy to send it, but it will be subject to the same deadline for comments. I
Yes.
can't extend
Yeah,
that.
that's
Sorry.
fine. That's fine. No, I'm happy with that. Yeah. Okay. Right.
One more point, there's essential maintenance this Thursday.
Aha, there you are. So you can let them know. So, okay. Right, so thank you very much, Tony. Right, okay, with that, I'll close the meeting at 11:25. Thank you very much, members. Could you take us offline?